Time for a story. I want to tell you the story that I was told about a monk living in the forest by herself. So, first of all, I think it's important to understand what a monk is in order for me to tell this story properly. So I'll just give you a little context. When I was sort of growing up, or the first idea of what a monk is that I was ever told was just an idea of somebody living somewhere with nothing. And, maybe they're in a monastery, like a Buddhist monastery or something, maybe a Tibetan monk, something like that. But I didn't really know, what are they doing and why? And it didn't really make sense. Not to me, not growing up in the US where I did. So this context is for you. A monk is one word. I'm not sure where the origin of that word comes from, but that's kind of a Western understanding. In India, taking this up is called brahmacharya, and a male brahmachari is, at least in South India where I was, is called a swami, and a female monk is called, or a female brahmachari is called ma. So typically they'll have a name like Swami this or that, or Ma this or that, something. But anyway, so this story is about a female monk. And the thing to know is that the context that's relevant. Why would somebody take up this kind of a path? When you say you're taking up brahmacharya, you're becoming a monk in that sense, what you're really saying is that it's not that you just want to go live, give up all your things and just be happy sitting, a gentle being somewhere. You could be gentle. It's fine. But it's not that you should or shouldn't be gentle. But almost always what I've observed is intensity. And the reason for that intensity is because when you take up that kind of a path, you're saying, well, if we had to metaphorically say their spiritual path is like point A to point B, let's say it goes through a forest, right? And there's a little road, that's your spiritual journey. So some people want to walk, no problem there. You can smell the flowers, you can see the sights, maybe you'll see interesting things along the way, but you're walking, so it'll take a while. Some people, maybe they want to take a bike, go a little faster. But maybe there's other people that want to be in a group. So maybe you ride in a covered wagon together. You're going a little faster. You're with a group of people. There's a little more safety. There's a reason people use covered wagons to go across the US when we were first manifest destinying this continent. But some people want something else. They're not really interested in seeing the flowers or tasting the fruit along the way or anything. And for such people, they take a path of brahmacharya. And that means that they're on a very intense, single-pointed, focused kind of a path. And this is the equivalent of being like in a jet flying over. You are not interested in all those other things, which they're pleasurable, they're fine, nothing wrong with them, nothing bad, but your focus is single-pointed. You just are trying to go where you're going, and that's that. So you want to get there as fast as possible, as intensely as possible. And that is what brahmacharya is. So whether it's, some people may have a sense of fire in them, a little anger, a little, not like angry at somebody, just simply angry because it's intensity. Some people could be intensely peaceful. Some people could be very loving. They could be very gentle souls. But either way, there's a fire and intensity about them. Usually that's what I've seen when I see a brahmachari. Something in them has a little kick, a little spice. They're not simple people. Maybe they're simple in terms of their education or their intellectual understanding of the world. Maybe not. Some people were once doctors, but they have an intensity about them, and it's beautiful. So, the story of this Ma living in the woods, I'm telling you that context to say that this is not a kind of nothing person. This is an intense person. This is a kind of a brahmachari. And So anyway, she was living somewhere. Her path, she decided that what she wanted was to have her own little place where she could be on her own, and she had what she needed and the time and availability to do what she wanted, which maybe she had various practices she did, or maybe she learned from some guru. I don't know. I don't know her thing, but I do know that she was by herself. So here she is. And if you've ever lived on your own, you know that there's a certain awareness that you need to have, because you just need to know what's going on. There's no one else. It's you. It's just you, right? And that is often a helpful thing on the path of sort of growing as a person, because you don't have anyone else to be your crutch. So maybe that's why she chose. I don't know. But she was by herself. And so some people in town knew she was there. She's been there for a while. And a few young men, a few, boys basically, decided that, in their, stupidity, immaturity, they thought, you know what? There's a woman all by herself there, and I think they just thought they wanted to go take advantage of her. They thought they were going to go rape her, right? So they go to her place, and they show up, and when someone has that kind of intent and they come and you're by yourself, you can tell what's up. Now, in this kind of a scenario, just picture yourself. You're by yourself. You're all alone. And multiple people have come with such negative intent toward you. Many people may feel fear. Many people may feel just all sorts of things. But that's not really how she responded. She responded to the situation in a very particular way. She looked at them. Again, intense kind of person. She looked at them and she said, no matter what you do to this body, you cannot lay a scratch on this being. There's nothing you can do to hurt me. You may whatever to this body, but you can't hurt this one. And the way she said it, I'm not saying these are quote unquote her words, but that's what she was trying to express to them. And she said it with a fire. Now, if you're the kind of person who wants to rape somebody, your intent is a sort of domination. It's like a power thing. What are you going to do with someone like this? You cannot dominate this person. Maybe you can physically do something, but you cannot dominate her spirit. You can't crush it. You can't do anything to it. She's got a fire that you cannot put out. So they left because there was nothing they could do. Now, this is one of those situations where in a movie, maybe she would have pulled out some kung fu or something. Maybe she would have, like Kung Fu Panda, used the whooshy finger. What was it? Skadoosh. That's how he said. But that's not how she played it. She just took it head on and told them what it was. I'm sure there were other things said, but that's not the point. This is the point. She had that fire. And this story blew my mind because that is not a response I expected to hear. I wouldn't even think that would work. But the reality is that I've come to find anyway, from meeting different people, is that there's a lot being said beyond just the words that you speak. There's a power behind having a fire within you, an intensity. And when you're in a certain way where you speak with conviction and power, you can make things happen. And don't get me wrong, they could have still raped her. Very much possible, right? Easily she could have been overpowered. Luckily it didn't happen, but that's not really the point. The point that's beautiful for me is that she had that force, and it's beautiful. The directness, the bluntness, the clarity. You cannot scratch this. You cannot touch this one. Oh, something else. It really is something else. And you may be wondering, how is this possible for you to attain that kind of inner fire, that kind of something. And that's actually the power of yoga in many ways. A yogi is not just some gentle kind of thing. Maybe that's what they need to be. It's fine. But to be on a spiritual path, you need fire. This is not a let me just... You can be a gentle being, but you still need intensity, intensely peaceful. There needs to be something. And the way you crank up that voltage is through yoga. Real yoga. I'm saying like, not just, I'm bending and twisting. There are things you can do. It doesn't even have to be physical necessarily. For example, you could learn something called Isha Kriya. This is something simple and free you can learn online. And it's very powerful. It helps create a gap between what is you, the you that you experience on the inside, and what is your body and your mind. It's not that you are like enlightened all of a sudden. It's just that if you have that gap, if there's a little bit of space, then you won't have suffering. And the reason you won't have suffering, it's not that you won't feel pain or that you won't still have the same stuff that you're dealing with now. It's just that the gap is there, so the suffering is over. Because you can only suffer two ways. Physically, someone, poking you, stabbing you, physically hurting you, or psychological. And the psychological stuff that's all inside your head. That's the only the only way you can suffer. So, creating that little gap, the distance between you and your body and your mind, is the end of suffering. And something like Isha Kriya is a simple tool you can make use of right now to work toward that, to develop this little bit of separation. Not that you're detached or not involved in life. You don't have to be a hermit or live in a cave. You don't need to live in the woods by yourself. It's just that the reason that those people coming to mean to do her harm or couldn't lay a scratch on the life that she is because there's a certain distance. Just like, if you're sitting in traffic, it sucks. If you're on the side of the road just watching it, it's not as big of a deal. There's a little distance. Same thing. So, figure out how to have a little distance from your mind and your body, and you too can have this thing in your pocket where it doesn't really matter what anybody else does. You are free from the suffering in the sense that no one else can cause suffering to you anymore. Maybe pain. Maybe situations can be difficult, but you're not going to suffer them. And that is just everything.